Hello, my name's John. This is Tauflower. This is a Discworld Warhammer 40,000 crossover video, and you're watching wargames, models, and other hobbies. Hello and welcome back to another video. Today I am going to be doing a painting video of this conversion that I worked on a few videos ago. This month I am doing Discworld and Warhammer 40,000 crossover videos. So far I've converted Winsrind, the Warhammer 40,000 Psyker, in homage of Rincewind. I've converted Tauflower, my version of Tauflower, the Xenos baggage, which obviously is the luggage, and then I've done the librarian as well. In my last video I painted Winsrind, and in this video I am going to be painting Tauflower. So this is the first time I've actually ever painted a Tau model, so I'm going to jump straight into it by painting the skin. And to do that I'm going to work with three different paints. I'm going to start with the base coat of rust grey. Then I'm going to use Fenris Grey as a bit of a dry brush, picking up the highlights, and then the same with some grey cere. So let's get started with that. And with this model, the bare sections are the head and the legs as well. So I want to get this paint onto this model. It's quite warm today, so it will dry quite quickly. There we have the head there. Now I'm still trying to work out exactly what colour I want to paint the armour and the clothes of Tauflower. Whether it's going to be matching a existing Tau set or just come up with something quite unique, as they are a tourist, so it may be different coloured clothes or something like that. But we shall see as the video progresses. Now, if you haven't seen any of the videos so far, I will leave a link in the description to a playlist that will go to all of the videos this month as they get released. So that is the darkest colour in place now. So what I need to do is let that dry a little bit before I go on to the dry brushing. Okay, so I've let it dry for a little bit, and let's get some Fenris Grey, which is only slightly lighter than the rust grey. I say slightly lighter, actually when I put it on my palette it looks a lot lighter. I just want to carefully build up some layers with this. Now, dry brushing this is drying very quickly actually, so I'll be able to jump onto the lighter colour nice and quickly. Just trying to get the leg in there. Okay, so let's go for a very small amount of grey cere. Very light amount on that face, but no, that's brought it out quite nicely. As I said, I haven't painted any towel miniatures before. I do have some in my collection that I want to work on, and this is quite a nice taster model to get onto it. So there's the skin done. Right. So I will do the eyes at some point on this one, but I think the next step is definitely let that skin dry and then move on to the next colour. Okay, so the skin's all done and dry now. What I'm thinking is, let's get something to point with. Go with this brush. All of the kind of the close fitting clothing, so the bit that goes around the head there, the bit that goes over the feet and the legs there, the gloves, that's all going to be vermin fur. Any metal work on there, so there's a few bits round where the ears are, I'm going to go with Iron Breaker, and then I'm going to do a wash of Nile Oil or Agrax Earthshade, or a mixture of the two on those. So let's get started painting those. So I need to be careful that I don't go over onto the skin while I'm doing this. But let's get that in focus. There we go. I should really use a smaller brush, but I'll grab the first thing that came to hand. So it doesn't matter if this goes onto the areas that haven't been painted yet. Oops, sorry, that was off camera then. Let's go for a smaller brush. What have we got here? Yeah, that one will do. And immediately I go over the edges. Let's quickly just rinse that off with water. There we go, that's cool. Okay. Okay. So what I probably will have to do at some point whilst doing these bits is touch up some details on the skin, but that doesn't bother me. What I'm going to do, I'm going to just carry on working on this, and then we'll come back and have a look when I've finished. So there we have all of the sections of clothing that are either gloves, the close fitting section to the head, the belt, the bits around the ankles. That's all painted with a wash over it, which really quite happy with the way that came out. And whilst doing that, I kind of liked this very pale look of the white in contrast to it. So what I've decided to do, I'm going to try it first with all of the fabrics before I go on to the armour. I'm going to start with some Administratum grey to build up some layers, and then I'll go to some grey cere, and then possibly either Corax white and then white scar, or the other way around, not sure yet. I might add some darker bits as well. I've got some Dawn Stone. So first things first, let's get some Administratum grey onto the fabrics. Now, I'm not too worried while I do this if I don't cover all of like the fabric and the sections. What I want to do is kind of bring the paint down and kind of fade it out slightly. So I'm kind of just playing around with the tonal values and how it's kind of coming around and looking. Or I might just paint, and I think I'm going to just paint it solid and then do a little bit of highlighting and dry brush. Let's see how it goes on. Actually, no, that works quite nicely. So I'm kind of putting the paint on and then just kind of brushing it around and knocking it back slightly, just to get kind of slightly different colours. Not different colours, different tones from the paint. But I think definitely there'll be some coats of dry brushing going on there to make a more kind of fabric style look of texture more than anything. That's what I'll be going for. So I'm not sure on the armour colour, to be honest, at this stage. I was thinking about really quite a bright colour, but the more I saw the kind of the colour of the white primer against the other tones, I quite like that idea of white. So it might go for white armour and then just put maybe a few accents of red or something like that as various markings on it. It's where I wish I hadn't necessarily stuck it to a base. Try and get paint in there. No, that's looking okay. I'm liking the way that's turning out. Let's get it on shoulders where we've got some fabric. Doesn't matter if it goes over the edges a little bit. So sometimes I do like planning a model like the painting style a lot more, but I do enjoy just kind of taking a little journey with it. Sounds silly, but just seeing what the kind of the model is looking for as it comes to colour. Right, let's just change to a smaller brush so I can do the collar. Okay, so what I'm going to do, let's let that dry for a bit. Going to do some dry brushing, maybe a few ink washes, but we'll have a look at what it looks like when I've done that. Okay, so there is that first few coats of paint and washes on the fabrics. I might knock them back a bit after I've painted some of the armour sections. The first thing I want to do with the armour is, I think, paint it with some white scar. So let's have a look what that looks like when I put that on. Now you'll see that I have gone over bits of the armour with washes just to do a kind of first bit of detail on where there's any kind of indents or things like that. So I'm actually quite liking the way that's turning out. I don't want it to be perfectly clean. I want it to look slightly weathered, as we don't know where this tourist has been. They could have been all over the place. I quite like how that's looking. So let's carry on just with this back section. It's basically just knocking back any of the wash that went over the edges too much. But I'm quite liking the idea of this being a very plain model, but then have a few kind of kicks of colour in places. This brush probably isn't the best, as it's got a little bit of a hook to it now after not cleaning it and not treating it that well, but that's okay. Okay. Right, I'm liking how that's turning out. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get on with the rest of the armour, and then we'll come back and have a look at it once I've done it. Right then, I'm happy how the white sections have gone. Obviously they're not as noticeable because they're onto that pale grey. I have done a little bit of dry brushing around the base here. And thinking of what other colour I want to introduce to this model, I decided on oranges. So I have got Squig Orange, which I'm going to put on some sections of the armour first, and then I've got some Wild Rider Red, which is just quite a darker orange, just to pick out any details and things like that. So let's get this Squig Orange, which is freshly opened. Didn't realise I haven't used this one before. So we'll see how this one goes on. It's quite a flat colour. Now I've decided the sections that I want to paint, so it's going to be the shoulder pads and the chest plate, which does go around slightly onto the back, but I'm not sure if I'm going to paint that bit. And then I might do a band on the hat, the helmet. But first things first, let's get one of these shoulder pads painted to see what it looks like. I quite like that little pop of colour. Yeah. Okay, let's carry on. I'll do the other shoulder pad. And as I'd already painted the armour white, this is going on really quite nicely. I'm not sure how much I should weather this, being as this is a water cast towel, and they're not really, well, from my understanding, they don't really get involved in any fighting or anything like that, but it could be weathering due to the adventures this one's gone on as a tourist. Yeah, I like how that pops slightly. Okay, I'm going to carry on painting this orange armour and we'll have a look at it in a minute. That's the armour painted. Really happy with the way it turned out, even if the hat has turned into possibly a Star Wars character crossover there, but that's alright. No, really liking the way this is turning out. So next job, I'm going to sort out whatever his little widget is he's holding, as well as the staff, and then also work on the face a little bit just to give it a bit more depth, and then that's going to be almost done, I think. So for the staff, I think I'm going to keep it nice and simple. I'm going to stick with the iron breaker, so that's the only metallic that's going to be on this model. And what I'm going to have a look at, possibly this top section along here, I might paint a similar colour to the armour, but the rest of it is going to be the iron breaker. So I'm just going to get on with putting that paint down. And as with all of my metallics, what I'll probably do is give this a wash over the top of it. Just want to make sure I get some paint on it first though. I think I've got all around the staff there. Let's do the top section. This is an enjoyable conversion to paint actually. I do have some Tau models in my collection that I actually haven't really put together yet, and this has given me a little bit of inspiration into possibly painting a few up, maybe a small army. Not that I need another project to do, but hey, that's what the hobbies are about, isn't it? Yeah, so let's then do this top section. So whatever this staff does for this watercast tourist, I'm not sure, but we'll make it look interesting. So that's the staff done. Let's get some paint on his little handheld device. I do think that globe I'm going to paint a different colour, so we'll not get silver on there. If it does go over the edges, that's okay, but I'll try and avoid getting too much on it while I work out how I want to paint it. Okay, that's the iron breaker done. Now I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to give it a wash with Nuln Oil, and then paint these other details. So I'll be back in a minute. So here is Tauflower so far. I quite like the way that the armour's turned out with the white and the orange on the kind of the grey fabric background. It's quite nice having the muted colours with a few standout pieces. I added green on the little handheld device just to give another colour. I have realised as well, if I hold this up to Windsrind, that I've gone for very kind of a red theme without realising it, but that's okay. So my next step is to paint the base, so I'm going to get on with that and then we'll have a look at the finished model. Here we have Tauflower. Quite happy with the way that this one's turned out. Let's see if we can get it zoomed in. So I've managed to get the face done all of the details and the base. The last thing that I need to add is some grass tufts. So I think I'm going to go for one of the larger ones on this one. So I'm just going to grab it with some tweezers, and there we go. Put one there, and let's grab a little one. Let's go just there. So I put them on with tweezers just to make it a little bit easier. You know what? I think I'm going to put another one on. Just there. There we go. Just make sure I put them all back in the container. Let's have a look. So there we go. Grass is on the base. There is Tauflower, Windsrind, and in the next video I'm going to start painting the baggage. So if you've liked these videos or like any of the other videos that I've been working on, please consider a like and subscribe. Put a comment down below of what you think of this model and how these Discworld Warhammer 40,000 crossovers are going. And all I can say now is thank you so much for tuning in. My name's John, and you've been watching War Games, Models, and Other Hobbies.